Well, I guess I should address all this drama going on with former National Security Advisor John Bolton. I find it very interesting that the resistance crowd is now latching on to, one of the most vile people of the Bush administration, folks who, the kind of guy who, was among the chief architects of everything that the left at the time claimed to oppose and to hate Bush for. He was the ambassador to the UN. John Bolton was under George W. Bush, and he was responsible for projecting the administration's very hawkish viewpoints and essentially being bombastic to other countries. And since, leaving the Bush administration, he's continued to advocate for war, anywhere and everywhere. And so you'd think that across the board, unless you're a super hawkish Republican, there's really nobody who would like John Bolton. Well, apparently that's untrue, because all he had to do was say Orange Man bad, and now John Bolton is a saint. He's a respected elder statesman who is being derided by the Cheeto president. And the only way to show Trump who's boss is to buy John Bolton's book and put some money in his pocket. It really shows just how disgusting our culture is, that even with the advent of cancel culture, people like John Bolton are still walking around, with mainstream acceptance. You would think the first folks who would get canceled if we're trying to cancel problematic people who have done some bad stuff maybe wouldn't be folks who, said mean words. You would think it would be folks who, actually played a direct role in getting the U.S. To wage aggressive wars against innocent people that have, in the case of Iraq, killed around 1 million or so. Of course, that's that's an estimate. It could be much higher than 1 million. I mean, you'd think that that kind of crime against humanity would get you the right of being the first person canceled. I mean, John Bolton's not even a historical figure. This is someone who held power, well, in the Obama or in the Trump administration only, a year or so ago. But, in his real shining time in the Bush administration only a few years ago. And yet now the only people trying to cancel John Bolton and his book seems to be the Trump administration and their supporters. Strange, isn't it? Really does demonstrate the emptiness of the resistance crowd and their so-called movement. Now, something Luke Rudkowski pointed out is this whole endeavor of Bolton's trying to publish this book with seemingly classified information in it, which the Trump administration is trying to block. Is quite ironic considering his stance on, then Private Bradley Manning, who stole some classified documents and leaked them to WikiLeaks, who then published them. And that, of course, included the infamous collateral murder tape, which, if you've never seen that video, you should watch it. It just shows footage from inside of an American helicopter where, some soldiers mistakenly shot up some innocent journalists and, I believe, a minor. And then the U.S. tried to cover it up. I believe they were working for the AP even. I think they were videographers of some sorts. They were carrying cameras, and the guys in the helicopter thought that they looked like rocket launchers. And this was very embarrassing to the United States government because the U.S. government very assertively tried to cover this up and said, no, we're not going to tell you what happened. These guys are just dead, and that's it. And then WikiLeaks let everyone know what actually happened. And the government, never apologized to the families of these people who were killed mistakenly in Baghdad. And if it ever comes up, all that any U.S. government official would do, including all the present members of the Trump administration, is they'll just pout and talk about how, that's classified. Ho 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 ho. Well, John Bolton, being one of those people, said that Manning should get the death penalty, essentially. He said Manning should be tried for treason and, should get whatever the worst sentence is. And the worst sentence is death. And that's because, Manning leaked information that was embarrassing to the government. Now Bolton is trying to do the same. I just thought that was so funny that nobody had pointed that out. Or at least maybe Luke wasn't the first one, but that's who I heard pointed out. So perhaps Bolton now is the one who needs to be executed, by his own, his own standard. I, of course, don't believe in that. I'm not super comfortable with the death penalty. I don't feel bad most of the time when you have a high-profile case, and you've got this, very clear scumbag and he's given the death penalty. That doesn't make me feel bad. But I'm very sympathetic to the people who will say, maybe we shouldn't, give the government the power to just murder people. Because, the government gets a lot of things wrong. So, on something that important like a person's life, they're probably not going to get that right either. So I'm very sympathetic to that government, or to that argument. So just to make it clear, I'm not saying John Bolton should be executed. That's not me. John Bolton is the one who said, essentially, that John Bolton should be executed. Now, something pretty funny is that Trump came out and said, essentially, hey, I should have fired Bolton after he screwed up our North Korea deal. Which, I said so at the time. In fact, Trump should have known that Bolton was going to screw up the North Korea thing, because Bolton has no interest in the U.S. making peace with North Korea. And I talked about that at the time. You can go back on the channel. I believe if you just search Hanoi Talks on the channel, you'll probably find my video discussing this. And it was devastating, because I had, a lot of people had a lot of hope. That Trump was starting to turn things around with North Korea, and I think there was real potential there. And Bolton essentially made them an offer that they had to refuse, and Bolton knew that. He gave them a bunch of conditions and things just to force the Koreans to walk out, so that to save face. It was a humiliating kind of thing. It was it was insulting from their perspective, and if you're engaging in diplomacy, that's something you would tend to avoid. Now Bolton specifically engaged in that because he did not want any diplomacy. And amazingly, Trump didn't fire him after that. But now Trump is saying, but you can't really trust the things that Trump says day to day, so I don't know. Maybe he had no idea that it was even Bolton's fault at the time. Or maybe he knew that Bolton was going to do that, and Trump, for some reason, thought that playing hardball like that was going to work. It's hard to say. I mean, once things get back into the mists of history, it becomes blurry. Now, here's something I find very difficult to believe. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Trump actually said he didn't realize that John Bolton, of all people, supported the Iraq War when he hired him. Now, that really, really makes me concerned for Trump's mental health. I've never been one of these people who says, oh my gosh, Trump has Alzheimer's. He's stumbling down the stairs. Look, Hillary's health, or Trump's health in this case. I've never been one of those people, but I mean, if you didn't realize when you hired John Bolton that he supported the Iraq War, what do you realize in this world? I mean, there's few things less obvious than that. I mean, Bolton was a Bush administration guy. He was, one of the public faces of the Bush administration, and since he left the Bush administration, every time he was on Fox, all he was talking about was why we should go to war in the next country, or why Obama, was so bad, because he turned tail and ran from Iraq. He abandoned Iraq. I mean, I don't know how to comprehend that Trump somehow was ignorant of this. But, I guess to his credit, he says that once he learned that Bolton supported the Iraq War, he lost confidence in him, which, that's a good thing. That's a good reason to lose confidence in someone, because they supported something that was so obviously and terribly bad. However, that was not enough, apparently, to make Trump fire Bolton. But, I have to say, it would have been kind of embarrassing, but also, kind of funny and endearing had Trump come out as soon as he found out that Bolton supported the Iraq War and went like, wait, this guy's a neocon warmonger, I don't want him, get out. Sure, Trump would have looked very stupid, because, how do you not know John Bolton supports the Iraq War? But on the other hand, he would have looked real good, in that, he's actually standing up for principle and firing someone for a very good reason. But all that's in the past now. I have to say, I wasn't going to go into any detail to Bolton's book until it, comes out eventually, but actually, never mind. Yeah, I'll wait on that. I'll discuss the details of whatever Bolton alleges, all of his gossip, when the book is out, when we've had time more to review it and all these things start trickling in, and if there's nothing else really important going on, because I'm not going to use gossip to fill a spot when there's, important news going on. So anyway, if you get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.